Ah! Hello everybody, it's your pal Jonah back at it again with another video, and today we are going to talk about the Oscars. Now, as some of you guys may know, the Oscar nominations were just recently announced, at least recently at the time of me recording this video. Editing takes forever, but it's whatever. So today I wanted to go through the list of nominations and give my opinions on them, my predictions on what I think will win each category, and also some movies that I thought were snubbed. Because, as always with the Oscars, there's always something missing. That's just how it is. Now, you may be asking, Jonah, what gives you the authority to make Oscar predictions? Absolutely freaking nothing. But I really like the Oscars. I love watching the Oscars, and I'm a film student. So I feel like in my quest to make content that's more about stuff that I'm passionate about, I thought this would be a good start. Now, I know some of you guys were expecting me to do my Q&A video first, but I haven't quite gotten enough responses for that. So if you have any questions about me, about what new content I'm thinking about what direction I want to go, about literally anything, feel free to head over to my Instagram. I saved the story so you guys can still react to it. And I also made a post on Facebook. So if you are friends with me on Facebook, please respond to that because I want to do a Q&A video. And I've gotten some interesting questions, but I want to get a little more before I make the video. And also this video was a little more time sensitive because I wanted to get this out as soon as possible because the Oscars are coming up in February and I wanted to make this video before like everybody else does. Although by the time this gets out, literally everybody else will have made an Oscar predictions video, but whatever, that's whatever. When am I ever in on the trend? Never. Now, there have been a lot of really quality movies, in my opinion, that came out in 2019. So the Oscars this year are going to be really interesting, and I'm actually really excited about it. I wasn't too hyped about the Oscars last year. There weren't a lot of really, high-quality movies, at least in my opinion, that were nominated. I agree with the movies that won, but I felt like there wasn't a ton of variety last year. However, this year, we've had a ton of really, really good movies, especially in the last few months. We've had Little Women, Jojo Rabbit, The Lighthouse, 1917, Richard Jewell, a lot of really quality movies. So I am really excited about the Oscars this year. The only problem is the Oscars are a little difficult to predict because the Academy, it's all over the place, you know? There's so much politics and garbage within the upper echelon of Hollywood that it's always really hard to judge. And I also haven't seen all the movies that are nominated, but I'm gonna try my best based on what I have seen and what I've also seen from the movies that I haven't seen yet, but what I've heard about them, and give my honest opinions. And yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna give my honest opinions. Now, before we get into the nominations, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I found out, looking at my analytics, that only about 40% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, which means 60% of you watch the videos but don't subscribe. So please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell next to it so you get notified when I upload a new video. It would really help me out. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're gonna start off this video with best performance by an actor in a leading role. Now, a lot of the nominations I haven't actually seen for this one, so this one's gonna be hard for me to judge, but I'm just gonna go through them and tell you guys what I think. So first off, we have Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory. Now, I haven't seen this movie. I didn't even know this movie existed until the Golden Globes came around, and I haven't gotten around to watching it, but I do want to watch it. Antonio Banderas is a great actor. I love Antonio Banderas. Zorro is one of my favorite movies. I grew up watching Spy Kids. I really like Antonio Banderas, and he's a really talented actor. But looking at the other nominations, I find it highly unlikely that he will win this one. Next off, we have Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, I freaking love this movie. Quentin Tarantino is for sure in my top 5 directors. I think I would put him at number 4. I love Quentin Tarantino. I love all of his movies, and I specifically loved this one because it takes place in 1960s Hollywood, and I love classic Hollywood, and I love movies like this that are historical with a little bit of a twist. And as you guys know by this point, it does take place during the Manson murders, and I am a big fan of true crime, so I was really excited about this movie, and I was really, really surprised and engrossed with this movie. I love it. Now, do I think Leonardo DiCaprio will win? I think it's a possibility. Leonardo DiCaprio did a really good job in this movie, as he always does. It's Leonardo DiCaprio. But I think he's definitely a strong contender for this category. Next, we have Adam Driver in Marriage Story. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be really mad at me for saying this, but I have not seen Marriage Story. I've had so many people tell me to watch it. I love Adam Driver. I know he kind of gets made fun of for playing Ben Swallow in the god-awful Star Wars trilogy, but he's a really talented and strong actor. If you guys haven't seen Silence, I highly recommend you check it out. He did phenomenal in that movie. So just from his acting ability, from what other things I've seen him in, I think he's a strong contender for this, but I do not think he's going to win. Like Leo and Antonio, I highly doubt he's going to win, but if he does, I think that'd be really cool. Next, we have who I personally think is going to win, and that is Joaquin Phoenix from Joker. Joaquin Phoenix did phenomenal in this movie. Now, this movie's not for everyone, but if you think you can handle it and you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend you check it out. It was phenomenally done. Joaquin Phoenix's new, fresh take on the Joker I thought was really fascinating, and it stayed true to the comics. And I won't say how, but there's a little scene at the ending that really brings it all together and wraps it up with the comics really well. And I really like this take on Joker. Now, while I think he should win, and my prediction for this category is that he's going to win, it's going to be hard because Joker was a really controversial movie when it came out. A lot of people were afraid about acts of violence or copycats with this movie. While nothing really came of that, at least as far as I know, controversy usually doesn't do well at the Oscars. So this one's hard, but again, he's Joaquin Phoenix. The Academy loves Joaquin Phoenix. He's a phenomenal actor. He did great in this role. So I personally think he's going to win this. Finally, we have Jonathan Pryce in The Two Popes. I actually saw this movie. Not a lot of people knew about this movie. It's a Netflix original, and Netflix has really stepped up their game with their original movies. I used to always kind of crap on them and say that their movies were nowhere near as good as their original series, but they stepped it up this year. Marriage Story was Netflix. The Two Popes was Netflix. We have The Irishman. I highly recommend you check out this movie in particular. It's super well acted, super well done. The story's really interesting, and I love this movie. But again, like I said, I think Joaquin Phoenix is going to win this category, so I don't think Jonathan Pryce is going to win, but it's good to see him nominated for this because he really did do a phenomenal job. Next, we have Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role. Now, this is the one category where I have seen all but one of the movies that are nominated. I feel like this one I'm a little bit more confident in my ability to judge, but we'll see because there's a lot of really talented names on this list. First, we obviously have Tom Hanks for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This is the one movie I didn't get to see. I wanted to see it so bad. I love Mr. Rogers. I love the Mr. Rogers story. He's such a genuinely good person, and I love that Hollywood decided to make a movie highlighting how great of a person he actually was. And he's from Pittsburgh, which is my family's hometown, so go us. Tom Hanks is usually a shoo-in for the Academy, which is why I said this one's really hard to judge because there's a lot of talented names. I think he has a chance though. I think he has a very strong chance to win this, especially after getting a special award at the Golden Globes. He's almost a shoo-in for this award. Next, we have Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes. Now, I love Anthony Hopkins. I mean, who doesn't love Anthony Hopkins? He's such a phenomenal actor. Same as Jonathan Pryce. They both did so well in this movie, but I don't think this one's gonna win. I don't think he's gonna win for this one. I don't think The Two Popes really had enough buzz to really warrant an award because, like I said, the Oscars is all about politics and it's all about buzz and making a stance and making a statement with their award. They want to make it in the news. They want people to talk about it. I highly doubt that Anthony Hopkins is going to win. As good as Anthony Hopkins was in it, I don't think he's the best person in this category. So I think it's unlikely he's going to win. Al Pacino from The Irishman. Now, who doesn't love Al Pacino? I mean, he is one of those classic actors who just doesn't go away and is constantly doing good stuff. Now, a lot of people didn't watch The Irishman because it is 3.5 hours long because Netflix made the mistake of telling Martin Scorsese that the movie could be as long as he wanted it to. And the one thing you should never do with Martin Scorsese is tell him that a movie can be however long he wants because he is infamous for making super long movies. Wolf of Wall Street was super long. Silence was super long. Even Hugo was really long. Martin Scorsese cannot make a short movie, which is fine. It just means that a lot of people kind of missed out on this movie. I know my dad's gonna disagree with me on this because my dad didn't like this movie, but I personally really liked this movie. I thought it was super well done, super well acted. I think Al Pacino did phenomenal in this movie, but I don't think he's gonna win. If I had to pick between Al Pacino from The Irishman and our next nominee, who I'll get to in a second, I would pick our next nominee personally. But like I said, I already think Tom Hanks is gonna win this one, so it doesn't really matter, but whatever. If you couldn't tell, I didn't have a script for this movie. I was just gonna read the names and talk about them. So if this is super rambly and not at all helpful, I apologize, but hopefully I'll be able to cut out a lot of my rambliness in the editing and we'll just see how it works out. Like I said, I wanted to make more videos that are more true to myself, and part of that is I want to let myself just kind of be a little more free and less scripted because all of my videos before this have been heavily scripted where I'm just reading directly off a script. I don't want to do that really. I want to kind of just be free to express myself and express how I feel. Next, we have Joe Pesci, also from The Irishman. Now, between Joe Pesci and Al Pacino, I think Joe Pesci did a better job. I mean, it's hard to tell because they both did so phenomenally well in this movie, and a lot of that is down to Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese is a phenomenal director. I mean, I don't think anybody will really disagree with that. So a lot of it is down to him, but also Joe Pesci is such a phenomenal actor, and it's really hard to tell between the two of these who is more likely to win. But just from a personal opinion standpoint, I preferred Joe Pesci's performance and Joe Pesci's character in The Irishman, but that's just me. And finally, we have Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, I mean, everyone did a good job in this movie. Quentin Tarantino, again, another phenomenal director. He does a really good job. He really knows how to work with actors, and he's worked with Brad Pitt in the past, but I don't think Brad Pitt really did enough in this movie to really stand out as a performance. That's not to say I don't think he did a good job. I think both Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt did a phenomenal job, and they both had such good chemistry and good characterization. I don't really think Brad Pitt really did enough to stand out, especially when we have people like Tom Hanks playing Mr. Rogers, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino. I don't think he really stands out. I put him kind of in the same camp of Anthony Hopkins, where I think they both did a good job, but they didn't really stand out to me. Now, obviously, the Academy might completely disagree and give it to either Anthony Hopkins or Brad Pitt, but personally, in my opinion, I think Tom Hanks is gonna win this category, and that is a prediction I am sticking with. My money is on Tom Hanks, but we'll just have to see. Next, we have Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role. Cynthia Erivo from Harriet. Now, I didn't see Harriet. This was on my list of movies that I need to watch, and I plan on watching it sometime. Hopefully, I'll be able to watch it before the Oscars come around. So I don't really have much to say on her. I don't know anything really about Harriet. I know it's about Harriet Tubman, but other than that, I have no idea, so I'm just gonna move on. Scarlett Johansson from Marriage Story. Again, I haven't seen Marriage Story. Personally, I don't like Scarlett Johansson as an actress, and I know my roommate's gonna kill me for that because my roommate's a huge fan of Scarlett Johansson. She just doesn't do it for me. Like I said, I haven't seen Marriage Story, so she might have done a phenomenal job. Personally, though, I'm not a big fan of Scarlett Johansson, so I'm not gonna pick her as my pick for this category. But who knows? She might end up winning. She probably did a phenomenal job in Marriage Story. I have no doubt. Next is Saoirse Ronan from Little Women. I freaking adore Saoirse Ronan. I love every single movie she's been in. She's a phenomenal actress. She's such a nice person, and she's freaking gorgeous and great in everything. And she did an especially incredible job as Jo Marsh in Little Women. Now, again, a lot of this is down to Greta Gerwig. Greta Gerwig is a phenomenal director. If you haven't seen Lady Bird, I highly recommend you check it out. Super good. Again, stars Saoirse Ronan. This one is personally my pick for Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role, mainly because I loved Little Women. Little Women was probably one of my favorite movies from this whole year. I loved everything about it. I loved all the actresses. I love Greta Gerwig. I love Saoirse Ronan. And I haven't cried in a movie so hard in as long as I can think of. I love this woman. So I'm heavily biased towards Saoirse Ronan for this nomination. I don't care. I'm giving it to her anyway. I think Saoirse Ronan's gonna win, and I think she deserves to win. She did a phenomenal job. Next, we have Charlize Theron in Bombshell. Bombshell was one of those movies where I really wanted to see it because I love Charlize Theron. I love Margot Robbie. Both of them are phenomenal actresses. This movie looks super interesting. For those of you who don't know, Bombshell is about sexual harassment at the hands of the leader of Fox News. I can't remember his name. And it looked really interesting, and it got good reviews. And Charlize Theron plays Megyn Kelly, and oh my gosh, does she look exactly like Megyn Kelly. It's scary how much she looks like Megyn Kelly. The makeup department did a phenomenal job to make her look like her. And I love Charlize Theron as an actress. I'm sure she did a phenomenal job, but I haven't seen this movie, so I can't really judge. This is one of the categories where I think I've seen almost none of the movies, so it's hard for me to judge. So I'm just gonna go with Saoirse Ronan. I'm sorry, Charlize. I do love you. And finally, we have Renee Zellweger in Judy. Again, I'm sorry if I butchered that last name. I've never heard it pronounced, so I'm just guessing. Again, I didn't see Judy, so I have really not a lot to say on this. I have no idea what it's about. I've never seen a trailer for it. I've heard of it, and I know it was on my list to watch, but I know next to nothing about it, so I can't really just say anything about it, so Just gonna move on. Next, we have Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Kathy Bates and Richard Jewell. Haven't seen it. I do like Kathy Bates as an actress. I'm sure she did a phenomenal job. Clint Eastwood is one of those like top tier directors for me. He is such a phenomenal director. Freaking love American Sniper. This is a super interesting story and a story that not a lot of people know about, and I think it's really fascinating, but I haven't seen it, so I don't have much to say on it. Next, again, we have Laura Dern for Marriage Story. Haven't seen Marriage Story. Love Laura Dern. I think she did phenomenal in Little Women. She did incredible in that movie, and she's a great actress. I love Laura Dern, and I love that she's starting to do more things, but haven't seen Marriage Story. Don't have much to say about it. Next, we have Scarlett Johansson again for Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit is such a weird movie, and I love it so much. It's a movie that only Taika Waititi could make, honestly. For those of you who don't know, Taika Waititi did Thor Ragnarok. Jojo Rabbit is about a little boy who's part of Hitler's Nazi youth, and his imaginary friend is Adolf Hitler, played brilliantly by Taika Waititi, but it turns out that his mom is actually hiding a Jewish girl in their attic. Super bizarre story. I'm honestly incredibly surprised this movie even got made, especially in the current political climate, but boy oh boy am I glad that it was made. This is a phenomenal movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Scarlett Johansson, Sam Rockwell, Rebel Wilson, Taika Waititi. Phenomenal cast, phenomenal story, phenomenal movie. And Scarlett Johansson did really well in this movie. This is one of the few roles where I think she really stood out in. My prediction is that Scarlett Johansson's gonna win this category. I don't think she's gonna win Best Actress, but I do think she's gonna win Best Supporting Actress, and she deserves it. She did a phenomenal job in Jojo Rabbit. Next, we have Florence Pugh from Little Women. I've already gushed about Little Women. I'm not gonna do it anymore. Florence Pugh did a phenomenal job. She's a great actress. She did great as Amy Marsh in this movie. She did great in Midsummer, but I don't think she's gonna win this. I think it's gonna be Scarlett Johansson, especially since Scarlett Johansson has a much bigger name. I think it's more likely to go to her, although Florence Pugh did do a phenomenal job, and I think if she does win, she definitely earned it. I just think it's unlikely that she will. Finally, we have Margot Robbie from Bombshell. Again, haven't seen Bombshell. Freaking love Margot Robbie. She is a phenomenal actress. She was the only thing I liked about Suicide Squad. Loved her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Loved her in Wolf of Wall Street. Margot Robbie's definitely in my top 5 actresses, maybe even top 3. Love Margot Robbie. Sure, she did phenomenal, but I haven't seen it, so I don't have much to say. Next, we have Best Animated Feature Film of the Year. I haven't seen a lot of these nominees. I'm not a huge fan of American animation. I love anime, if you couldn't tell. Not a huge fan of American animated movies. They're not really something I'll go and watch unless it gets a lot of buzz, but I haven't seen most of these movies, so I'm just gonna kind of breeze through this. How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. How to Train Your Dragon, in my opinion, is probably one of the best animated trilogies. I put it right up there with Toy Story. They're all such phenomenal movies. I love fantasy. I love the actors. I love the characters. I love the story. Really love this movie. Don't think it's gonna win, but I think it definitely deserved to be nominated. Next is I Lost My Body. I've never even heard of this movie. No clue what it's about, so I'm just gonna move on. Next, we have Claws. Now, I have heard of this movie, haven't seen it, haven't seen a trailer, no idea what it's about, so again, moving on. Next is Missing Link. Now, I definitely think this is a big contender for Best Animated Picture. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go and check it out. It's a really well-made movie. I don't remember if it's stop motion or if it's animated to look like stop motion. I'm pretty sure it's stop motion. It kind of flew under the radar because stop motion is still a very niche genre, and not a lot of people will go out of their way to see a stop motion picture. But if you haven't seen this, definitely check it out. I put it right up there with Kubo and the Two Strings. It's definitely a top tier stop motion movie. I definitely recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it. It won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature, which makes me think it will probably win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature as well. Usually I think that, but it doesn't always happen. My gut is to go with whatever won the Golden Globe for that category and say that's gonna win the Oscar, but my pick for Best Animated Feature is Toy Story 4. This is a movie that didn't really need to exist, but good lord am I glad it does. This movie was so well made. It really closed off the Toy Story story very well. I cried twice in this movie, but I mean, that's not a big deal. I cry in literally everything. It's Pixar, which if we're to go by the history of Oscar winners for Best Animated Feature, it's most likely gonna go to Toy Story 4. The Oscars adore Pixar. They win almost every single time they're nominated, and I think they definitely deserve to win for this one, and this is my pick for Best Animated Feature. Best Achievement in Cinematography. I already know what's gonna win this. I already know what I want to win this, so I'm just gonna go through this really quickly. We have The Irishman. Super well done movie, as always. This is any Martin Scorsese. Love the cinematography in this movie, but I don't think it's gonna win, so I'm just gonna move on. The Joker. The cinematography in this didn't really stand out to me, so I doubt this is gonna win, especially, like I said, it's a controversial movie. We have The Lighthouse, which might be a contender. The Lighthouse is definitely not a movie that I can recommend you go see. It's super dark and super niche and definitely not for everybody, but if it's something you think you might be interested, I definitely recommend checking it out. The whole movie was filmed in black and white, very low lighting, and in a 4:1 format, which is a square, so it's not a typical widescreen format. And the reason they went with this is because it takes place in the late 1800s and they wanted it to feel really authentic, and I think this movie really captured it. The cinematography in this movie is phenomenal. I'm actually really surprised Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson weren't nominated for their performances in this movie, but it's a really niche movie. It's A24. If you guys are familiar with A24, you know what I mean when I say it's super weird and bizarre and very art housey, but the cinematography was definitely very well done in this movie, and I think it's a contender. But what I think is gonna definitely win is 1917. Roger Deakins is the god of cinematography. This movie was so phenomenally filmed. For those of you who don't know, the whole movie was shot and edited to make it look like one long continuous shot, and they did so well. How they filmed it is really fascinating. I highly recommend you check out some behind the scenes footage from this movie. It's super interesting. Roger Deakins is a god. The cinematography in this movie really stands out, and if this doesn't win, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'll never wear another anime shirt again if this movie doesn't win. And then finally, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino, phenomenal director. He is really good about knowing where to place a camera. He's really talented, and this cinematography does stand out to me, but it doesn't hold a candle up to 1917 or Roger Deakins, so we're just gonna move on. This is a category I don't really know much about, so we're gonna breeze through this one as well, because I really just want to jump through all of these and get to like the best picture, which is the big award of the night. This is Best Achievement in Costume Design. The nominees are The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think Little Women's gonna win. If Little Women doesn't win, then Jojo Rabbit's gonna win. I mean, the costuming was good in Joker. It was good in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It was good in all of them. But like The Irishman, they're all just wearing suits, so not really much there. Little Women is a period piece. The costuming design was gorgeous. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie, was actually the costume design. So I'll be really surprised if it doesn't win. Jojo Rabbit's another period piece, so the costume designing was really good in that as well. But I think it's gonna be Little Women. Best Directing. This is one that I'm gonna take a little bit more time with because I want to be a director, and so this is something I'm really passionate about, and there's a lot of good contenders. I already know who's gonna win based on the Golden Globes, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it, but I do want to not just breeze through it. First off, we have The Irishman, Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese is a phenomenal director. He's usually a shoo-in for Best Director, but there was a surprise hit this year that I know probably none of you have heard of and definitely haven't seen. I think it's gonna go to him. More on that later. Next, the Joker, Todd Phillips. Joker was phenomenal. Todd Phillips did a great job. Everything about this movie was great. But like I already said, it was a controversial movie, so I highly doubt it's gonna win. We have 1917, Sam Mendes. He did a phenomenal job directing this. But I think what really stood out in 1917 was the cinematography, not necessarily the performances or the directing. Definitely not the script. I have a lot of problems with the script, but I'm not going to get into that now. So I highly doubt he's going to win this, but he definitely deserved to be nominated. Next, Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've already gushed about Quentin Tarantino. I love him. Again, usually a shoo-in, but I don't think he's gonna win this. I think the surprise hit is gonna win. And of course, the surprise hit was Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. Parasite was the most original, the most well-made movie, and definitely the best movie of the year. This movie was phenomenal. It was made in South Korea, so it has a very limited audience. Definitely check out this movie. It's so freaking good, and I think Bong Joon-ho is gonna win this. I have no doubt. He won Golden Globes, won Best Picture. I believe this won Best Drama. I know it won Best Director. Freaking watch this movie. So freaking good. He's a shoo-in. He's gonna win, and he totally deserves to. Next, we have Best Documentary Feature. I don't watch documentaries, so I'm just gonna read off the list and move on. Hey guys, once again, it's Editing Jonah here to clarify a mistake. I kind of wanted to give a little preempt to this video and also kind of a little disclaimer. When I filmed this video, I hadn't heard or seen anything from any of the documentaries that were nominated, so I kind of just breezed through them and just kind of jokingly mock that I don't watch documentaries, because it's true, I don't. But when editing this video, I had to find posters for the movies, and it turns out a lot of the documentaries are about really sensitive and serious and touchy topics, and I wanted to make it clear and kind of preemptively apologize that I had no idea about any of this. So I wanted to make it perfectly clear I'm not mocking the subject matter. I'm not belittling the subject matter of any of these documentaries. I honestly had no idea what any of them are about when I made this video. So I just wanted to apologize and let you guys know that I'm not trying to belittle or mock the subjects of these documentaries or the important work that documentaries do have. I think documentaries are important. They're just not my cup of tea unless it's a specific topic that I'm interested in. So I just kind of wanted to make that clear and apologize to you guys. Yeah, enjoy the rest of the video. We have American Factory. Don't know what that is. Didn't see it. The Cave? I don't know. The Edge of Democracy? That sounds political, so that's probably gonna win. For Sama? I don't freaking know. I've never heard of any of these. I don't watch documentaries. I'm sorry. Unless it's like a really spicy documentary, like the Fire Festival documentaries. Other than that, if it's not like that or true crime, I'm not gonna watch it. And finally, we have Honeyland. Don't know what the flip that's about. Next, best documentary short subject nominees. Again, don't watch documentaries, but the nominees are In the Absence, Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone if you're a girl, which, what? Life Overtakes Me, St. Louis Superman, and Walk, Run, Cha-Cha. What? I'm giving it Skateboarding in a War Zone. That sounds political, so I'll probably win. Achievement in film editing. Here's the thing. I can edit. Clearly, I edit my own YouTube videos. I hate editing. That's why it takes me like 5 weeks to put out a video after I record it, because it's just hard to bring myself to edit. I hate editing, so I don't really know too much about what goes into the editing process. So this isn't really something I can judge very well, but I'm gonna try my best. We have Ford v Ferrari, which I didn't see, but I really wanted to. It's definitely on my list. I'm sorry I haven't seen a lot of these. I just haven't had that much time to watch movies recently, or money to watch movies, but I'm sure it was good. I heard great things about it, so I'm sure it was a good movie. The Irishman. I feel really bad for the person that had to edit this though, because knowing Martin Scorsese, he does a lot of takes, and this movie's also 3.5 hours long. So I think they should just get the Oscar just for having to deal with that, because I know that if I had to deal with that, I'd go insane. We have Jojo Rabbit, phenomenal movie. Again, don't know much about editing. Joker, again, great movie. Don't know about editing. And Parasite. Like I said, this one's hard for me to judge, but just going with my gut, I'm gonna say The Irishman, just because that was such a great movie and the editor had to do so much work with that. Like, I can't even fathom how much work the editor had to do with that. So I'm gonna give it to Thelma Schoonmaker. Best international film of the year. Now, like I said, I don't watch a ton of international movies unless they're animated and from Japan. So I haven't seen a lot of these. I'm gonna go through the nominees, but I think Parasite's gonna win this. If Parasite doesn't win this nomination, I don't know what the heck's wrong with them. Parasite is definitely going to win. But the other nominees are Corpus Christi, which I haven't seen, Honeyland, which I haven't seen, Les Miserables, which I've seen the Anne Hathaway one, Pain and Glory, Antonio Banderas, and Parasite. That's going to win. Achievement in makeup and hairstyling. I couldn't care less about this category. I think it's great that this category exists because makeup and hairstyling is something that's really not that appreciated outside of the people who work in film. So I think it's great that they recognize this, but it's not really my thing. So I don't really know how to judge this. So I'm just gonna judge off of what I thought had the best makeup and hairstyling. So we have Bombshell. They made Charlize Theron look like Megyn Kelly, which is phenomenal. Joker, the makeup in Joker was super well done. I really enjoyed the makeup in this. But other than the character of Joker, I don't think that much went into this personally. So I don't think this is gonna win. We have Judy, haven't seen. Probably had great hair and makeup. I don't freaking know. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. This had the most makeup and hairstyling done with it. There were a lot of practical effects. There was a lot of creature effects in this movie. I didn't like the movie personally, but I feel like achievement in makeup and hairstyling is made for the movies that have really good makeup but weren't that great. So I think Maleficent's gonna win this one personally, just because I think that's the one that had the most work going into it. And then finally we have 1917. The makeup for this was great, but I don't think it didn't stand out to me as much as it did in Maleficent. I think 1917 is gonna win a bunch of other categories, not this one. Best achievement in music written for motion pictures original score nominees. I am so thankful that movie music is becoming more mainstream. More and more people that I talk to listen to movie scores for fun as part of their day, especially in college. I think that movie music until recently has gone massively underappreciated by the general populace. So I'm really happy that it's become more mainstream. That's my rant about movie music. Let's get into the nominees. We have Joker. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that guy's name. I'm not even gonna attempt it. Music in Joker didn't really stand out to me. I didn't think it was like phenomenal. That's just me. I mean, I wouldn't really listen to it in my free time. I am judging this nomination based on if I would listen to it in my free time for fun. And I would not listen to the Joker soundtrack. I would, however, listen to the Little Women soundtrack. It was written by Alexandra Desplat. I really loved the music in this. I think it fit the story really, really well. It really stood out to me. I remember watching that movie and thinking, wow, this music's great. I'm totally putting this on my phone when I get home. And I did, but I don't think it's gonna win. I think this is one of the categories that is going to go to 1917. Thomas Newman did the soundtrack for this. The music in this movie was so subtle, but so like impactful and memorable. It reminded me a lot of the music from Dunkirk. It was just, it fit the war epic so well. I really loved the music in this. I think it's gonna win. The final nominee is Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, which, I mean, John Williams does everything. He's usually a shoo-in for this, but the Rise of Skywalker, the music in that just didn't do it for me. I mean, it felt the same as every other Star Wars soundtrack. That's not to say it isn't good, but I didn't feel it was very original. I didn't think it really stood out. So I don't think it's gonna win this. I think Thomas Newman is for sure gonna win this. If he doesn't win, I'm gonna be really surprised. Next, we have Best Original Song. I'm not familiar with really any of these. First, we have I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away from Toy Story 4. It was written by Randy Newman. Disney music is always good. No one dislikes Disney music, but I don't even remember this song in the movie. Doesn't really stand out for me. I don't think it's gonna win this one. Next, we have I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man, written by Elton John. This is the one I think is gonna win. This song was so freaking good. When you write an original Elton John song that stands out in a movie of nothing but quality Elton John songs, you've done something really special in my opinion. I think this one's for sure gonna win. It's the one that stood out the most to me. And Rocket Man had a lot of very political undertones in it, and the Academy usually like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with political undertones. I think it's important that a movie has a message, whatever that message is. But this is the kind of movie, it's based off a historical figure. It's a true story, phenomenal cast, Elton John, great music, political undertones. I think it's gonna win. I think it's definitely a shoo-in. Next, we have I'm Standing With You from Breakthrough. It was written by Diane Warren. I haven't even heard of this movie. No idea what it's about, so I have no opinion on this, but like I said, it can't be better than I'm Gonna Love Myself Again by Elton John. Next, we have Into the Unknown from Frozen 2. This is the only one of these nominees, other than the Elton John one, that I think really has a chance of winning. I personally didn't really love it. I'm not a huge fan of the music in Frozen. I didn't think Let It Go was gonna win when that won way back in, I think it was 2015, 2014. Whenever. I don't like Frozen, not a fan. But I think just going off of history, this one definitely has a chance of winning, but I don't think it's gonna beat out Elton John. You can't beat Elton John. No matter how hard you try, you just can't. Elton John's just one of those people, you can't beat it. You can't beat Elton John. Unless, of course, you're his husband. that was so bad. I'm just gonna move on. I'm cutting that out. Finally, we have Stand Up from Harriet. Didn't see Harriet. Not gonna be Elton John. So now we're coming up to the technical nominations. I'm not really that familiar with the more technical aspects of film, stuff like sound mixing, visual effects. That's just not my area of expertise or something I'm really interested in. So I'm just gonna kind of blow through all of them and just give what I think is gonna win. I don't even think I'm gonna go through all the nominees. This video is already gonna be so long that anywhere I can cut out fat, I'm gonna cut out fat. So I'm just gonna blow through them and say what I think is gonna win. Best production design is gonna go to 1917. I mean, the production design in this movie was phenomenal. The sets were insanely huge. Like, they were ginormous, and this whole movie was filmed on location, which is like ridiculous. They built, I forget how many it is, I'm gonna put the number here. They built that many miles of trenches just for this movie. Like, the production design was insane. I think it's definitely gonna win this. Best sound editing, I think, again, is gonna go to 1917, but I also think there's a strong chance it'll go to Rise of Skywalker. Okay, I'm not gonna get into the whole Star Wars debate. It's just so toxic and stupid, and everything that can be said has already been said, so I'm not gonna get into that. I think all the technical aspects of the new Star Wars movie really stand out, and I don't think a lot of people are going to disagree with that. I think they sit out. I think it's a contender, but again, I think this one's going to go to 1917. Best sound mixing, again, either 1917 or there might be a big surprise and it might go to Ad Astra. Not a lot of people really saw Ad Astra. It didn't have a huge reception. A lot of people hated it. I haven't seen it, but talking to people I know whose opinions usually line up with mine and what they thought about the movie, I'd probably love this movie. I really want to watch it. It's a sci-fi movie, so I'm sure the sound mixing was probably phenomenal, as it always is in a sci-fi movie. Well, a good sci-fi movie at least. I think it's going to be 1917, but Ad Astra might pull a surprise. We'll see. Finally, we have best visual effects. It's gonna go to Endgame. Come on. Like, Marvel's effects are miles above everybody else's. Their effects team is so freaking phenomenal. I don't see how this can go to anybody else. There's not a single frame of Avengers Endgame where you can find anything wrong with the visual effects. And there were so many visual effects in this movie, like a crap ton of them. So I think it's gonna go to Endgame. I don't think any other movie has a chance. I mean, superhero movies are hard because the Academy doesn't tend to like them, but I don't think you can ignore how phenomenal of a technical achievement Avengers Endgame was. So I think it's gonna go to them. Next, we have best animated and best live action short films. Like documentary, short films is something I have no idea about. So I'm just gonna look through and pick a random one, I guess. Best animated, we have Desera Decrea. I don't know how to pronounce it. It looks like this, or parentheses daughter. Sure. Hair Love, I guess. Kit Bull. Yeah. Memorable. Sister. I don't freaking know. Let's give it to the one that was hard to pronounce. Sure. Live action short films. Brotherhood. Nufta Football Club. If there's one thing I know absolutely nothing about other than short films and documentaries, it's sports. So, The Neighbor's Window. That sounds creepy. Saria. And A Sister. We have Sister, and now we have A Sister. Okay, let's just give it to, I don't know, Brotherhood. Why not? Next, we have Best Adapted Screenplay. I already have my pick for this, so I'm just gonna go through this really quick. And a lot of the nominees are the same as they've always been. There isn't a large pool of nominees, so I'm just gonna go through them. The Irishman, already said what I thought about that. Jojo Rabbit, already said what I thought about that. Joker, again. The Two Popes, again, already said about that. I think it's gonna go Little Women. I think Greta Gerwig did a phenomenal job adapting this. It's really hard to do an adaptation of such a well-beloved and well-known title like Little Women, especially one that's been done multiple times before, and to make it original and fresh and new, but also retaining what people loved about the original book and also the other adaptions is such a monumental task and such a huge achievement that I think it's definitely going to go to Little Women. Next is original screenplay. Again, I'm just going to blow through these. We have Knives Out, which I haven't seen and everyone's mad at me for not seeing, but I'm sure it's great. I need to see it though. Marriage Story, haven't seen, heard it's phenomenal. 1917, like I said, I have a lot of problems with the script. I didn't think the story was super strong. I didn't think the characters were super well developed. I think this movie was a lot more of like a spectacle than it was like a super engaging story. And I think a lot of it is more down to cinematography. That's not to say it doesn't have a good story or good characters. I just don't think the story or characters really stood out for me. So I doubt this one's gonna win. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think personally is gonna win. I think this is one of the ones that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a real shoo-in for. Quentin Tarantino is a phenomenal screenwriter. His dialogue is, in my opinion, the best in the movie business. So I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's gonna win, but it also might go to Parasite, which is another nomination. It's so hard for me to judge Parasite because it's such a niche movie and it was such a surprise hit. It's really hard to tell. It's hard to tell if it's gonna go to a new thing or an already established screenwriter. And I think for this one, it's gonna go to Quentin Tarantino. That's just my opinion, but it could also go to Parasite. It's really hard. There's so many good movies out. It's really hard to judge. Speaking of great movies and hard to judge, we have the last category we're gonna touch on in this video, and that is, of course, Best Picture of the Year. This is the big award. This is the one that gets everybody talking. This is the one that gets everybody angry, depending on what wins. And this is the one that's going to be hardest for me to judge just because there's so many good movies on this list. But I think I have a pick. So we're just going to go through them. Ford v Ferrari. I already said I haven't seen this. Don't have much to say. I don't think this one's going to win at all. I think it's great that it was nominated and it probably deserves to be nominated, but I don't think it's going to win. The Irishman, Martin Scorsese. We have an established director. We have phenomenal actors. We have a great movie. I don't think it's gonna win. I think it's a contender. I think it's a possibility, but I don't think this one's gonna win. I don't know. It just doesn't stand out to me as much as some of the other movies on this list. As good of a movie as it was, it just didn't really like catch my eye. There are a few movies on here where I'm like, oh, this is for sure gonna be nominated as Best Picture just based off of the movie itself. The Irishman, on the other hand, I knew it was gonna be nominated just because it's Martin Scorsese, not because of the actual movie itself. I think it's a contender. I don't think it's gonna win. Jojo Rabbit, phenomenal film. Again, I think it's a contender. Again, I don't think it's gonna win. I just don't. Joker is for sure not gonna win. There is zero chance in hell that Joker's gonna win. The Academy's never really been a big fan of superhero movies or comic book movies because Joker's not really a superhero movie, but it is a comic movie. Also, controversy. Controversy is not good for the Academy. They don't like controversy, so that's out the window. Little Women, phenomenal movie. It just didn't hit me as like Best Picture material. I actually didn't even think it was going to be nominated. I knew it'd be nominated for Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress. I knew it would be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. I'm actually surprised it was nominated for Best Picture as much as I love this movie. I don't think it's even a contender. I'm going to put it in the Ford v Ferrari bucket and say, as good of a movie as it was, I don't think it's going to win. Marriage Story, again, haven't seen. I think this one's another one that's a contender, but again, don't think it's going to win.
Have you guessed? Have you guessed it yet? Have you guessed what I think is going to win? This, after everything that we've been through in this video, you should know. You should know what I think is gonna win.
1917, phenomenal movie. Definitely not gonna win. It didn't have a strong enough story, not strong enough characters. While I don't think it was the best movie of this year, I think it was probably my favorite movie this year. Definitely at least one of my favorites, but I don't think it's gonna win. It's going in the bucket with Ford v Ferrari and Little Women. Don't think it's gonna win. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, definitely a contender. Quentin Tarantino, big name actors. The Academy loves movies about Hollywood. They love celebrating themselves. If there's anything Hollywood's good at, it's worshiping themselves. So definitely a contender. But the movie that I think is gonna win, and I'm sure all of you saw this coming, is Parasite. I think this movie is going to win. Although it definitely wasn't my favorite movie from the year, it was, I think, the best movie that came out this year, just from like a pure objective quality standpoint. I think it was the best movie this year. I think it's gonna win. I mean, like I said, there are other contenders, but I'm putting my bet on the surprise, because if this movie wins, it will not only create a lot of buzz for the Academy and the Oscars, but also a lot of positive buzz, as it is a foreign film, and I don't believe any movie from South Korea has won Best Picture before. So this would be a record setter as the first movie from South Korea to win Best Picture, and it would get a lot of buzz for the Academy. And if there's anything the Academy loves other than loving themselves, positive media. Everybody loves positive media. So I'm gonna give it to the one that will cause the biggest stir, also the most positive media. However, if I had to pick a runner-up, because I feel like this is definitely a category I should pick a runner-up for, I think the runner-up for this movie is The Irishman. Just Martin Scorsese. He's usually a shoo-in for the Academy. I think Parasite's gonna win, but if it doesn't win, then I think The Irishman's gonna win. So that is my opinion. Whew, that was a long and very exhausting video. My throat is destroyed. I'm done with talking. The audio file, looking at it for this video, is over an hour long. If you guys are still watching at this point, thank you very much for watching. I'm glad you're still here. I know this was a long video. I know you guys were expecting the Q&A video to come out first, but this is a video that I really wanted to make. It's about something that I'm really passionate about, and like I said in my comeback video, I want to start making more videos like that, something that I'm really passionate about, something that I really enjoy, and something that I really want to make. And I also feel like this is a video that I should make anyway. Just as a film student and as someone who loves movies, I would be disappointed in myself and also regretful if I didn't make this video. As exhausting as it was, I'm glad I make it, and I hope you guys liked it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and hit that little bell next to it so you're notified every time we upload a new video. If you like this video, make sure you smash that like button. And if you have any differing opinions or you agree with my opinions or any of your own predictions, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think, and I'm really curious about what you guys believe is going to win. For now, this is your pal Jonah signing off and saying see you next time on Jonah Entertainment. Bye, everybody.